Donald Trump wants to force Pete Rose into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Is that right? So, a couple of days ago on social media, Donald Trump started rambling about the situation that Pete Rose died and they never declared him eligible so he could be voted into the Hall of Fame, yada, yada. About 24 hours after that, a report indicated that Mr. Rob Manfred, the commissioner for baseball, would have been in the process of considering in the last 2 months the reinstatement request that was submitted by Pete Rose's daughter. So there was even meetings that would have happened between December and January. So we're going back to very recent times. Now, the only disturbing part is this really the truth, or is he feeling pressure from something that the president should not be doing, which is crossing the lines of private institutions and trying to force them into something? Do I agree in the basis that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? I think that there is a statement to be made both in the fact that, yes, he absolutely does deserve it, but I also understand the reasons why he is not. In this video, I'm going to do my best to try and find what is the most logical, the center ground for all of this. Now, look, I was not blessed with the fact of seeing Pete Rose playing. My mom was far from conceiving me when Mr. Rose was still playing, even when he was about to retire. I have seen a lot of tape from Mr. Rose, and wow, I would have loved to see him play live because, man, was that guy electric, enticing. The blood, heck, he reminded me a lot of my peeps from the Caribbean. The type of blood that he played with was something else. He was into the game. True legend, by all means. The stats he accumulated, when you put him up, that is for sure right up there with, for sure, Hall of Famer. No doubt. The hits leader all time, the everything, and that, a magician indeed. So, the thing is with Pete Rose, he goes ahead, and you might actually be wondering, but then what's the other thing? Well, the problem is that at the same time, with all the accomplishments that Pete Rose had and how electric and how much greatness he brought into baseball, it's very tough to avoid the fact of a real situation, which is he also gambled. And I think it's very important in the interest of being objective to have this into consideration because it's very easily to go off in all the ramblings in a very opportune way like Donald Trump did. No surprise. And actually jump to the fact of this. And again, I always try and be as objective as possible with any subject, this being no different. One thing that Trump did not mention is that back in the 2000s, Bud Selig, who I've never, ever been a fan of anything of what he did, or at least most of what he did, especially the handling of the steroid situation, went ahead and gave the option in the matter of conditions for Pete Rose to be reinstated. Now, the first thing that we actually need to understand about what I'm saying is Pete Rose has never been in the ballot for the Hall of Fame. The reason why he's not been in the ballot for the Hall of Fame, and this is a concept that many do not understand till this day, Pete Rose is currently ineligible from baseball. The Hall of Fame cannot receive Pete Rose due to the terms of how it works. Any player that is deemed ineligible by Major League Baseball will not be able to qualify for the Hall of Fame. So, returning to Mr. Selig and Rose, what happened in the 2000s was, listen, Selig goes ahead and tells Pete Rose, these are the terms and agreements for you to actually qualify for reinstatement to baseball. If I am telling you, I want you to go ahead and apologize, which in the end, why wouldn't it be the true American way if it's not consorted with an apology, which was actually asked from Rose? So he asked that. He asked that Pete Rose please stop gambling, not going to casinos. You know, the type of situation of which the Hall of Fame who is supposed to have the standards of the moral clause and conduct, should actually be rained on. And yes, you go ahead and you're subjected to the fact that, hey, it's okay. You want to be reinstated, but you have to play by these rules. And you know what? In the end, if you want reinstatement, you can't actually want to eat your cake, but you want to eat your cake only if it's you the one that's eating. You don't want to share with the rest of the kids in the party. That's not how it works. At least not for things to flow in the proper way. So Pete Rose declined on that. And yeah, he was not going to admit that he gambled. He was not going to apologize. There was reports from ESPN that actually indicated that, in difference to what Pete Rose did eventually say, that he only gambled on his team winning, there were reports that indicated that he also gambled in general. And you know what? I'll tell you something. I'm more inclined to believing that he gambled in anything and everything just from the perspective of a bias. And truth be told, given the how the stance was of Pete Rose of denying that he was not going to stop those doings when Selick requested it from him, yes, it was a bias for him. It was just not an activity that he could actually pick up like, oh, I want to go today and tomorrow to the casino, but I'm not going to go again till who knows when. No, this man had a bias, and one that sadly was a detriment to everything regarding him and his legacy. So if we're to place baseball as the big villains, that's tough. Now, in the same token, I'll tell you this, however. I do think that there is an amount of players that are in the Baseball Hall of Fame that it should be revised. And I don't want to say that one bad does another bad and this and that. But I do think that sometimes there is a little of a moral slippage in regards of what is allowed and what is not allowed. There are players that it's of, let me try and put it as soft as possible, a questionable reputation that they are in the Hall of Fame. So should this actually exempt Pete Rose? Well, no. But at the same time, life is not fair. And in Pete Rose's case, he was actually the one that was selected to be an example. Now, do I appeal to the fact that everyone should be treated equally? Well, yes, that actually should be the case. I actually have always advocated that, given the fact that there is a moral clause in the Hall of Fame, there's a fair amount of players that, again, have a questionable reputation that actually should be addressed for it. And I know that at the same time, if you're already inducted, you can't be removed. But you know what? In the same way, and this is just me playing devil's advocate and trying to do as much justice as I can to the great Al Pacino. Remember that movie in the 90s, Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron? Yeah. So that movie. Yeah. It's I would say if they did wrong, but they're okay, then why can't we induct him? But then we would actually go down the drain of anything goes, no holds barred. That's not what we want. What I would want is that going forward, and I believe this to be very possible, and in fact, I tip my hat because I think that the current commissioner, Rob Manfred, he's the best commissioner that baseball has had by far. I think that he has done mostly everything well, if not many things exceptional. And yes, I think that in regards of morale, he has been as close to precise as it can be. He has done a very good advocating for the fact of wrongdoings being treated as such in the proper way. Very different to past commissioners. I am not in disagreement from the fact of Pete Rose being reinstated. I just wouldn't want it to be just because a president decided that he wanted to put his nose into this. If we are to believe that, in fact, there was a reality that there was a request that actually did come from Pete Rose's daughter, that's great. I'm just a little disturbed at the fact that the malinfluence actually came much more from pressure from the president than from the legitimacy of the deserving of Pete Rose. And this I do it with the ultimate respect to what Pete Rose was as a player and the stud he was. I think he is deserving of the Hall of Fame because of all the great things he did in the sport. I just don't want his legacy to actually be marred on the fact that it only took pressure from a president and insert all the sarcasm possible for him to actually be inducted. This is a decision that should be independent, and I hope that it ends up being independent to anything. But at the same time, if he stays ineligible, I don't think that we should be critic. Because then if we are critics to the fact of him staying ineligible, then we are actually saying that it's okay not to have a moral clause. But at the same time, if you're actually going to say that it's okay, the moment you do one, you got to know that anyone that comes behind with a record, and yes, gambling, it's grave because you can actually manipulate the scores. You're a manager and you're gambling. And yes, again, I don't believe, may he rest in glory, I don't believe Pete Rose only gambled for his team to win. I'm sorry. A vice is a vice. It's not an objective thing. So yes, do I think that someone that manipulated the outcome of games should actually be remained left aside from baseball? I do. Sad as it is. I think he had a Hall of Fame level career. But in the same way, to be objective, that I dislike the fact of people with questionable reputation in the Hall of Fame, I can't actually support someone that also would be another one with questionable reputation. On the contrary, I would beg the commissioner to revise and actually think about making some of those ineligible. Recent statements from the lawyer of the family have actually said there was a lifetime ban. They're trying to go off a technicality that now that Pete Rose is dead, he should also be reinstated as eligible. That's, the fact that Mr. Rose is dead does not change the fact that he did wrong. If in life you killed someone, far be it from us to actually know what the judgment is going to be, if there is going to be one or not, depending on your beliefs in the next life, if there is one also. No, that's a ton of BS indeed. I think Mr. Rose should be left off of the Hall of Fame, and I think that the people that also have questionable reputations should also be removed from the Hall of Fame. It's very sad. Pete Rose had a Hall of Fame career that he himself, and only himself, took charge of throwing down the drain. I'll read you in the comments. I'm interested in everything and anything. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Just pretty much leave them there. I'll read you there. Be happy.